Hello and welcome to World Konnect, your window to the world. In the next half an hour, we bring you news from politics, culture, science and showbiz from across the globe. We bring you closer to events that shape our lives and experiences that narrate the story of our times. Let's begin with the focus of the show. As Brexit referendum favours leaving European Union, financial markets go for a toss across the world. PM Cameron proposes to quit. More referendum calls crop up within UK, with Scotland leading the charge. In the political conundrum of Spain, left, far left, right and centre-right parties fight it out for supremacy. Opinion polls deny clear majority to any party as voters prepare to cast ballot. In Colombia, decades of violent conflict pave way for peace as the Colombian government and the leftist Revolutionary Armed Forces agree to ceasefire. Peace accords spark celebrations in the Colombian capital, Bogota. After severe floods in South China, tornado, hailstorm and heavy rains wreak havoc in eastern part of the country. 98 people killed and hundreds injured as winds of 125 km per hour batter several townships. Emergency supplies rushed to the affected areas. Hoodlings program in Guatemala trains youngsters in boxing. Boxing inspires the youth to move away from the world of drugs and crime towards becoming disciplined citizens. The Brexit verdict is out. UK has voted to end its membership to the European Union. While the Leave camp naturally broke into celebrations, the Remain camp, the European Union and most of the world were overtaken by a sense of gloom. PM Cameron, who aggressively led the Remain camp, has decided to step down, while the immediate reaction to the referendum results saw pound plunging and markets crashing across the world. The bigger challenge for UK leaders would be to deal with the long-term economic repercussions and the nation's diminished influence on the global stage.
The sun has risen on an independent, united kingdom. And just look at it, even the weather's improved.
The words of UKIP leader Nigel Farage perhaps sum up the sentiment of the island nation that voted to leave the European Union in a landmark referendum that deals the biggest blow to the European project of greater unity since World War II. In a close contest, over 51% of the people voted to end the 4-decade-long association. Now that the verdict is out, it's likely to have significant economic, immigration and strategic implications on the United Kingdom. The vote will cast doubt on London's future as a global financial capital. UK decision to break away from its largest trading partner could plunge the nation into recession. However, the silver lining would be UK's ability to renew its trade ties with the rest of the world. Trade links with non-EU countries may not be as easy as it sounds, as FDI could fall without guaranteed access to the EU single market, putting UK jobs at risk. One of the most crucial planks of the Leave campaign was EU immigrants, especially from the poorer nations like Poland and Lithuania. People moving to or from the UK will have to watch out for the new residency rules. The cut in EU migration predicted by some experts might be tempered by allowing some skilled migrants from Commonwealth countries like India. In the new post-Brexit era, the UK might want to show the rest of the world that it had not retreated into isolationism and is still totally committed to NATO and the United Nations. The road ahead is not likely to be smooth for the European Union either. Besides negotiating new terms of cooperation with the UK, the Union would also need to undertake serious introspection so as to prevent other member nations from going the UK way. The world, as expected, did not take the European divorce too well. The result sent ripples across the world as the pound fell to its lowest level against the dollar since 1985. US stock futures predict sharp plunge in Dow. Japan's benchmark Nikkei was down 7.7%. In China, the mainland Shanghai Composite was down 1.2%. Meanwhile, a visibly emotional David Cameron said that he would resign as Prime Minister by October after Britons ignored his pleas to stay in the European Union.
The British people have made a very clear decision to take a different path. And as such, I think the country requires fresh leadership to take it in this direction. I will do everything I can as Prime Minister to steady the ship over the coming weeks and months. But I do not think it would be right for me to try to be the captain that steers our country to its next destination.
Article 50 of the Treaty on European Union establishes the procedures for the member state to withdraw from the EU. Once Britain invokes Article 50, it will have a 2-year window in which to negotiate a new treaty to replace the terms of the EU membership.
Britain's decision to leave the EU has shocked and stunned world leaders. As Donald Tusk, President of European Council, has called people to remain calm, concerns have been raised on the immediate need for reforms in the bloc.
It is a historic moment, but for sure not a moment for hysterical reactions. I want to reassure everyone that we are prepared also for this negative scenario. For all of us, the Union is the framework for our common future. I would also like to reassure you that there will be no legal vacuum.
Σήμερα είναι αναμφισβήτητα μια δύσκολη μέρα για την Ευρώπη.
The project of European Union has been dealt a significant blow. We respect the decision of the British, but it underlines a deep political crisis, a crisis of identity and of strategy for Europe.
Πολιτική κρίση, κρίση ταυτότητας και στρατηγικής για την Ευρώπη.
Calling it a watershed moment in EU history, German Chancellor Angela Merkel said the 27 countries should not take any hasty decisions based on Brexit, while French President Hollande said that this was a test for the Union.
Only together we will sustain our values of freedom, democracy, constitutional legality, as well as the economic, social and ecological values and foreign and security issues within the global competition.
Critics suggest that the Brexit could in fact trigger a breakup within the United Kingdom. Scotland leads the list. First Minister announces that her country is highly likely to hold a second referendum on independence in order to maintain its position in the European Union. A proposal for referendum on whether Northern Ireland should leave UK and unite with the Irish Republic is also doing rounds.
I want to make it absolutely clear today that I intend to take all possible steps and explore all options to give effect to how people in Scotland voted. In other words, to secure our continuing place in the EU and in the single market in particular.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has said his country had nothing to do with influencing public opinion on Brexit and added that Brexit will have both positive and negative consequences for his country. Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev said this vote is driving volatility on commodity markets, which is of concern to Russia.
I certainly want to note that it's an internal matter for British, but it's obvious that the results of the referendum has consequences not only for English and the European Union, but for the whole world economy. There is very serious volatility in commodities and financial markets. It of course does not make us happy.
Far-right groups of other European countries got the cue from the British plebiscite. Dutch anti-immigrant party chief Wilders urged for an exit referendum for Netherlands. France's far-right National Front party leader Marine Le Pen promised a French referendum on EU membership if she comes to power in France next year.
This referendum on France being part of European Union is democratic necessity. The French need also to be able to choose this path of freedom, which will give France back its full sovereignty.
Spain may be a perfect case study for students of political science as diverse ideologies fight it out to stake their claim at power. With absence of any workable coalition, the nation is plunged into fresh elections again. While Socialist Party is fighting for survival, the Conservative People's Party is leading the opinion polls but unlikely to register a decisive victory. The new entrants Podemos and Ciudadanos have further complicated the political conundrum of the country.
In just 6 months is the second poll battle for Spain. The inconclusive December poll results and political parties failing to strike a chord in forming a coalition government have led to fresh polls on June 26th. However, opinion polls indicate the results of the upcoming polls are going to be no different. For more than 30 years, Spain was witnessing a two-pronged poll battle. But the recent entry of far-left Podemos and business-friendly Ciudadanos has shaken the Conservative Popular Party and Socialists. With economic reforms on the anvil, Spain now has all four parties: left, far left, right and the centre-right battling out their ideologies. Acting Prime Minister Rajoy came to power in a landslide victory in November 2011, vowing to halt the economic crisis and asking voters for their support whilst warning them of difficult times to come. Anti-austerity, Party Podemos' surge has proved that his tough measures have not gone well with the people. But Podemos' gain will be the socialist loss. Analysts observe that this election will determine whether socialists would be able to retain their relevance in Spanish politics. As Podemos and Socialist Party are unlikely to join hands, Rajoy hopes to benefit from this. Though his Conservative Popular Party is leading opinion polls, they are still not expected to win an absolute majority, posing a greater challenge.
The People's Party, a radioactive party, so to speak, a party with which the other parties would not make deals. And that is the real problem that Mr. Rajoy will have after the election.
This is a fighting point for the centrist Ciudadanos party. Albert Rivera of the Ciudadanos is campaigning on market-friendly policies and an anti-corruption platform hoping to attract discontent People's Party and socialist voters. Will the Sunday vote rectify things or create a bigger muddle? Is the question topmost on everyone's minds.
Peace may finally get a chance in Colombia as the government and the leftist Revolutionary Armed Forces, or FARC, have finally agreed to cease fire after decades of bloody war. Although a final peace deal will require approval in a referendum, the former cessation of hostilities between the two main combatants and the FARC's acceptance of disarmament are key steps towards resolving a conflict that has caused thousands of deaths and displaced over 6 million people.
In a step closer to ending more than 5 decades of conflict, the Colombian government and the leftist Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, or FARC, have agreed to a bilateral and definitive ceasefire. Colombia's President Juan Manuel Santos and FARC leader Timoleon Jimenez signed the deal and shook hands in celebration on Thursday.
This is a historic day for our country. After more than 50 years of confrontations, deaths, attacks and pain, we have put a final end to the armed conflict with the FARC.
It sets the stage for a final deal to end a guerrilla war born in the 1960s out of frustration with deep socio-economic inequalities that outlived all other major uprisings in Latin America. Under the agreement, the FARC must hand over its weapons to United Nations monitors within 6 months. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and leaders of Latin American countries also attended the ceremony in Cuba's capital, Havana.
The expectations are now high that the vision articulated in the agreement reached over the past 3 years will soon become a reality. I strongly encourage you to fulfill these hopes.
The accord, capping 3 years of peace talks in Cuba, sparked celebrations and tears of happiness among many in the Colombian capital, Bogota. Thousands gathered to rejoice the beginning of the end of the longest-running insurgency in South America, a conflict which left an estimated 220,000 people dead and almost 7 million displaced.
In the US, Democratic lawmakers staged an all-night sit-in at the House of Representatives to push for gun control legislation in the wake of Orlando massacre. After raucous scenes that nearly erupted into a fist fight, the majority Republicans adjourned the House in the early hours on Thursday morning and said there would be no more votes until after July 4 holiday. The Democrats stayed behind and demanded Republican leaders allow a vote on gun-related legislation. Democrats were seeking votes on legislation to expand background checks for gun purchases, as well as measures to curb the sale of weapons to people on government watch lists. Speaker Paul Ryan, a Republican, called their action a publicity stunt and a fundraising ploy.
This is Congress, the House of Representatives.
The Olympic torch relay completed another week of scenic tour through Brazil, where it will be carried by some 12,000 people in 335 cities up until the August 5 opening ceremony in Rio de Janeiro. The flame was received in all its glory by an indigenous ceremony in the heart of Amazon. Traveling down the Amazon River, the torch was met by pink dolphins, excited crowds and traditional dancers, before finally making it to Rio for the start of the Games. The torch will cross a total of 20,000 kilometers of Brazilian territory. Tornadoes, hailstorm and driving rain killed at least 98 people and injured over 800 in eastern China on Thursday, flattening power lines, overturning cars and ripping roofs off houses in Jiangsu province. The storm struck mid-afternoon near Yangshan city, a few hours' drive north of Shanghai. Winds of 125 km/h battered several townships in Funing County. Power and communications are down in some areas, and emergency supplies, including around 1,000 tents, have been rushed to the scene. The summer have often brought severe weather to China. Ravaging floods in the south killed at least 22 people and left 20 missing earlier this week. Are you helplessly glued to online shopping websites, placing order for every other thing that catches your attention? Is your wardrobe overflowing with clothes, but you can't seem to stop buying more? Well, Japan has some alternative to offer to the world driven by consumerist lifestyle. Shaken by natural disasters and inspired by Zen Buddhism, for many Japanese, less is more, as they search for deeper meanings of life beyond materialistic possessions.
The Japanese are looking at a new way of life focused on minimal possessions and maximum happiness. Rooted in the traditional Zen Buddhism principles, many in the earthquake-prone nation are turning away from a consumerist lifestyle. While certain minimalists cut down on possessions and re-evaluate what they mean to gain something else, others welcome the chance to own only things that they truly like. Web media editor Katsuya Toyoda was a passionate collector of books, CDs and DVDs. The race to keep up with the latest and never-ending desire of wanting more finally tired him, and he gave away all his possessions to his friends. Now, his apartment houses just 150 things in total. His wardrobe consists of 3 shirts, 4 trousers and 4 pairs of socks.
It's not as though you feel satisfied after collecting a certain amount of stuff. Instead, you keep thinking about what you're missing. Now I feel content with what I have.
Hardcore shopaholics too were attracted by the minimalist principle, making them reflect on unnecessary purchases one is prompted to make.
My female friends would look at a cute product and go, kawaii, and buy them. I don't have the same reaction anymore. These products just look like junk to me. I feel a distance there.
Followers insist that unnecessary movements and sounds have also been curtailed by the minimal possession principle.
When my daughter is asleep, I become a sound minimalist. My movement becomes more graceful and pleasant, something similar to what you would learn at a tea ceremony or flower arrangement class. I think these things are all connected.
In all, the less is more principle has thousands of followers in the Pacific Island nation and thousands of more aspirants, all looking for a deeper meaning rather than materialistic possessions, which today's consumer-oriented world is centered around.
Gunmen in southern Nigeria have killed a local driver and kidnapped as many as 7 people. At least 3 of them are Australian citizens and 1 an Australian resident. The workers, 2 of whom police said later escaped, were contractors for a cement factory. They were attacked on the outskirts of the city of Calabar early on Thursday. And here are glimpses of some more stories from across the world. .27-year-old actor Anton Yelchin, best known for playing the character Chekhov in 2 Star Trek movies, was killed when his car rolled and pinned him against a wall in his driveway. The Russian-born actor died when he apparently stepped out of his car in the steep driveway of his Los Angeles home and it rolled backwards. Yelchin was due at a rehearsal when he did not show up. Friends went to his house and found him dead. No foul play was suspected as the accident is under investigation. His death has renewed calls from safety advocates to fix flaws in the US auto recall system. Legendary Chilean band Inti Limani Historico was in Cuba recently to record an album celebrating their 50 years of existence. The musicians spent a week recording in a local music studio established by famed Cuban singer Silvio Rodriguez. The group's album will focus on dance music. The album will also feature works with other artists, including Chilean singer Anita Tijoux. While Brexit is making headlines across the world, Wrocław in Poland is in news for reasons quite opposite. It is leading as an example of cultural integration in Europe. 500 opera artists from across Europe and America showcased the famous Opera Carmen in a football stadium. The grand performance celebrated Wrocław as Europe's Capital of Culture 2016.
While Euro 2016 has taken football fans in Europe by storm, a huge football stadium in Poland's Warsaw turned into an opera theatre as the city showcased the famed opera Carmen. The opera, staged first in Paris in 1875, broke the conventional opera genre. And now, with 500 actors on board, the opera was a major event organized to commemorate Warsaw as Europe's capital of culture for the year 2016.
I think it could be definitely something that introduces the greater audience, the greater public to opera, because it's so fun and it's so big.
The four-act piece of the Zarzuela, a Spanish poetic dramatic genre, Carmen beautifully weaves through the songs and spoken scenes. The graceful moves of the actors also added to the beauty of the scenario. The story revolves around a factory girl Carmen, defying the usual somber heroines of operas. American singer Kate Aldrich is looked on as the best lead Carmen to portray the role.
Przede wszystkim wspaniałą Carmen.
We have a formidable Carmen, the American singer Kate Aldrich, who has built a reputation over the last decade to be the best Carmen in the world.
Więc Wrocław dzisiaj gości taką gwiazdę.
A plot with French origins set in a Spanish city, featuring stars from all over, including the lead one from America, now staged at Warsaw Stadium in Poland. Cultural integration it is, and what better way to celebrate being a cultural capital?
Good athletes make good citizens. This is the motto that seems to drive the Hoodlings program in Guatemala that trains youngsters in various sports, including boxing. The training not only helps channelize their energy, it also protects them from the murky world of drugs and crime around them.
Using fists for fighting crime is nothing new. The youth of Guatemala City do just that, but with a twist. Coming from a neighborhood known for its drug and crime records, Olympic Foundation of Guatemala's program, Hoodlings, trains youngsters in 7 sports activities, including boxing, to fight their way out of them.
Here in the neighborhood where we live, it's very dangerous. There are many bad children and they take advantage of the good children. So training entertains them and gets them away from all those bad things.
For 14-year-old Yulisa, the boxing program was literally a second lease of life. Short while caught in the middle of a guns fight, Yulisa recuperated from the wound and the drug habit through the sport. Kevin, aged 18, was another youngster who decided to wear gloves to overcome a life of crime. These kids also get a new social circle through this program. People who encourage them to do better in life.
The sport itself has helped them a lot to stay away from drugs, away from bad friendships. Here they have made new friends, they support each other to practice sports and they encourage each other.
The sports helps the teenagers channelize their youthful energy in the right path. With crime close at hand, the programs makes them disciplined citizens along with becoming good athletes. The kids' performance is monitored and provisions made made for academic scholarships too. Sports here has the power to transform a life of crime to one with a goal and purpose, all with a punch.
With that, we come to the close of this edition of World Konnect. Do send us your feedback. You can write to us. Our email ID is worldkonnect.ddnews@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook. But before we end, we leave you with some glimpses of a performance by Welsh rockers Super Fury Animals as they lend support to the national team in Euro 2016. Till we meet again next week, goodbye.